Hello viewers. So this is the class on the subject income tax. So presenting a class on the subject income tax. This class is on the subject which is a direct tax. As you know that the proceeds from tax constituted a major source of revenue to the government that spends the collected amount of tax for the common benefit of the society. Over the years, a number of taxes have been imposed by various governments such as income, wealth, sales, expenditure, service provided, production, imports and exports, etc. So the government is levying these taxes, collecting the taxes because the government is empowered by the constitutions of India. According to the constitutions of India, the government has the right to levy taxes on individual and other artificial bodies, organization. Such powers conferred by Article 246 of the Indian Constitution. Subject as the income tax. Subject. The Act is Income Tax Act 1961 and another procedural part, that is Income Tax Rules 1962. So Income Tax Act 1961, which came into force from April 1, 1962 in whole of the country. It is a comprehensive tax. The Act consists of 298 sections and many subsections grouped under 23 chapters along with 14 schedules. The Act contains detailed provisions regarding applicability, basis of charge, residential status, heads of income, clubbing provision, set of losses, deduction, exemption, and assessment procedures involving appeals, penalties, and filing of returns, etc. The Income Tax Act is a direct tax. It is so because the liability to pay and ultimately burden are on same person. The person earning income is liable to pay income tax out of his own pocket and cannot pass on the burden of tax so paid on the person from whom the income has been earned. So this is directly connected with the person's income, and a person cannot shift its burden on another person. That is, the impact and incidence of tax falls on the same person, and that is why it is called direct tax. But it unlike indirect tax like a GST, where the burden and incidence of tax can be shifted from one person to another person. But in the income tax, the burden cannot be shifted from one person to another person because this is purely depends on the income earned by a person. So that is, if his income exceeding the prescribed limit, then he or she is liable to pay tax, and that this tax cannot be paid by other person on his behalf, that a person's income is direct tax. So when we say the history of Income Tax Act prevailing in the past in the different periods of time, the first income tax concept imposed in India in 1860 by British rulers on an experiment basis. Thereafter, in the year 1886, the first Income Tax Act was passed in India. Before this, that is existing Income Tax Act 1961. In the past, in different period of time, the act was passed in various times with various modification in each period. In 1860, first time British rulers introduced income tax on an experiment basis. In 1886, the first Income Tax Act came into existence. The pattern laid down in it for levying of tax continues to operate even today, though in some changed form. In 1886, the first Income Tax Act came into existence. The pattern laid down in it for levying of tax continues to operate even today, though in some changed form. In 1918, another Income Tax Act, that is Income Tax Act 1918, was passed, but it was short-lived and was replaced by Income Tax Act 1922, and it remained in existence and operation till 31st March 1961. Thereafter, Income Tax Act 1961, which came into force